So what does it actually take to create truth on a stage? For over 100 years, actors have wrestled with that question, and they almost always turn to one name, Konstantin Stanislavski. But his famous system, well, it's probably one of the most debated and misunderstood ideas in all of theater. So let's get into it and figure out what it really means to find the reality of doing.
And we're not going to do this by just reading some dry textbook. We're going to explore the Stanislavski system through the eyes of three absolute legends who actually studied with the man himself: Vera Soloviova, Stella Adler, and Sanford Meisner. Their firsthand accounts, they really pull back the curtain on the passion, the intensity, and all the controversies at the heart of his work. Okay, I want you to just imagine this for a second. You are at the most important audition of your entire life. You've got a poem ready, you're set to perform, and this is the direction you get. Well, this is exactly what happened to a young Vera Soloviova. And this one single, totally bizarre request, it tells us pretty much everything we need to know about Stanislavski's whole approach. So let's start right there with that very first meeting. Because it wasn't just some weird audition, nope. It was actually a brilliant test of the core ideas that would go on to define his entire system. Think about the pressure here. 230 hopeful actors, all vying for just 2 spots at the legendary Moscow Art Theater. But Stanislavski, he wasn't looking for some polished, perfect performance someone had practiced 100 times. By asking Soloviova to just run, he was looking for something totally different. Could she simply do something truthfully in the moment? Could she be present and alive and then use that real energy to complete his task? It was genius, really. It shows his focus on real action over fake-looking acting. And that brings us right to the heart of it all, what Stanislavski called the reality of doing. This is so much more than just a technique. It's a whole philosophy of performance. His students were really clear about this. This system is not some magic formula you can just follow. They all described it as a way of working. It's a process, a way for an actor to build up their confidence, to have a reliable method for testing their own gut feelings, and finding what feels true and believable in any scene.
And this way of working was, well, it was incredibly tough. Just look at what a day in the life was like at Stanislavski's first studio. This wasn't people just sitting around talking about their feelings. It was a full-on, full-body discipline. You had singing, diction, fencing, movement, and that was all before you even got to hours of rehearsals. The idea was that the actor's entire being, their voice, their body, their mind, was the instrument, and it needed constant tuning. But Stanislavski himself gave a warning. He was always pushing for truth, for simplicity, but he cautioned everyone against making the work simplistic. He knew the human experience is messy and complicated, and finding that truth on stage requires real depth, not just some cheap copy of life. But, and this is a big but, this whole search for truth led to the single most controversial, most debated part of his teaching, the use of emotion. And this is where his own students started to really disagree. I mean, this is the fundamental challenge for any actor, isn't it? How do you create a genuine feeling on cue 8 shows a week without it just becoming fake and mechanical? Stanislavski's deep dive into this very question is what created a massive rift in the acting world that honestly still exists today. At the center of this whole firestorm is this one concept, affective memory, which you've probably heard called emotional recall. The basic idea is that an actor can reach back into their own past, find a memory of a real experience, and use it to spark the same emotion for the character they're playing. And right here, you can see the two sides clashing. On the one hand, you've got Vera Soloviova. She saw affective memory as a really practical tool. She gives this great, simple example. If you need to feel cold, just remember the specific feeling of holding a cold glass of tea. It's about using your senses to trigger a real feeling. But on the other side, Stella Adler comes in with a powerful counterargument. She thought digging into your own past pain and trauma was not only limiting, but actually unhealthy. For her, an actor's imagination was much, much richer and more infinite well to draw from. Adler really doesn't mince words here. For her, this wasn't just some academic disagreement. It was about an actor's mental health. She truly believed that constantly reliving your own personal pain would not only limit you to what you've already felt in your life, but that it could seriously damage your spirit as an artist. So, Adler's argument really pushes us to look beyond just creating a single emotion. It makes us consider the entire craft of building a character and, understanding the play itself. See, according to Adler, an actor's job is so much bigger than just feeling sad on stage. It's an intellectual job, an imaginative one. You have to be a detective, dissect the script, understand the world the writer created, get a handle on the social and historical context that's shaping your character. In that huge puzzle, your own personal feelings are just one tiny piece. All right, so let's get practical. How do these different philosophies actually work when you're faced with one of the most intense moments in all of theater? You're an actor, you have to play Salome, and she has just demanded a man's head be served to her on a platter. How in the world do you get there emotionally? This chart just lays out the different paths so perfectly. Soloviova suggests using a personal, imaginative shock, a what-if scenario. Like, what if you imagined your own mother turning on you with disgust? It's using a personal fear to get a huge reaction. Adler, she would reject that completely. She'd see it as a total lack of artistic control, just flailing around emotionally. And then you have Meisner, who kind of offers a third way, substitution. For him, you could swap out the character's motivation for a personal one that gets a similar response. The specific trigger doesn't really matter as much as practicing that emotional response over and over until it becomes a reflex you can call on whenever you need it. So, after all this debate, all this disagreement, what's the takeaway? Where did all these different interpretations leave the Stanislavski system and really the art of acting itself? The most important point, the one that pretty much all of his students eventually agreed on, is this. The system was never, ever meant to be a rigid set of rules, a cage. It's a foundation. It's a starting point for truthful acting that an artist can then build on no matter what style of play they're doing. And who says it best? Of all people, it's Stella Adler, the very person who so fiercely argued against one of its main ideas. Even she admitted that the system is the fundamental base. It's the core training that allows an actor to tackle anything, from the grittiest realism to the most out-there stylized theater. It gives you the tools for truth, and you can apply those tools anywhere. At the end of the day, the debate that Stanislavski kicked off more than a century ago is still very much alive. And it leaves us with this incredible question about the very nature of creativity. Does an artist make great work by looking inward at their own life, or by looking outward into the limitless world of their imagination? Stanislavski's real legacy might be that he forced every actor who came after him to answer that question.